everybody. Welcome to another Mead Skeleton live stream. This is Confederate History Month. The month of April, we celebrate the glorious Confederacy and the Southern soldier. I'm sorry I had to start early this evening. I had some other obligations, but I wanted just to do a live stream tonight about the wonderful Confederacy. You know, of course, all my ancestors fought for the Confederacy. At least the ones that were here. And I think that there's a lot of misconceptions about it. But you know what I will say is that all these people that are attacking our heritage, all these Southern soldiers are better than they will ever be. Stonewall Jackson was a better man than any of those people that were there that day that decided to act like animals and, destroy monuments. So I'm here just really to celebrate the Confederate soldier as Confederate History Month. Now, Virginia proclaimed Confederate History Month all the way up until a few years ago, and it was done ceremoniously. There's also a group, there are many heritage groups in the area that will do it, but the state will not recognize it. And after we got taken over by the Democrats last November, they got rid of Lee Jackson Day, which was still celebrated as a holiday here in Virginia and across the South. The Confederate Confederate History Month, we look at the Confederate soldier. What did they do? They served their country nobly. They were noble patriots, and they just did a wonderful job. I think they gave their all. You know, General Lee, of course, was loved by both the North and the South, and General Lee exemplified the most wonderful characteristics of a devout Christian. Now, I believe that, why am I doing this? Because there's such an attack on the heritage. You know, it's all about, racist or evil racist. They don't understand the history. Now, Stonewall Jackson even had a Sunday school for blacks, and which was against the law in many parts of the country. And he believed in educating the blacks. Now, he believed that, now, as far as slavery was concerned, he just thought, something that God allowed to happen. But it wasn't the reason why he was fighting. These people had their land invaded by federal terrorists. And this disruptive war of northern aggression was pushed upon the southern people. What could they do? Now, actually, people like Dinesh D'Souza, who just doesn't know a bunch of history. You know, he's some Indian guy. What does he know about it? But he proclaims that the Confederacy was evil and run by the Democrats Party, which is the same Democrat Party today. He doesn't have a clue. The Confederacy would not put up with anything the Democrats do today. Do you honestly think that they would put up with 32 genders or LGBTQ or, communism? Of course not. These were white right-wing libertarians. And the North, which was more liberal, run by Abraham Lincoln and his evil cohorts, were trying to interfere with the Southern economy, raise taxes. The South believed in states' rights. It was over states' rights. That's what it was. It was all about states' rights and economics, not over slavery. You know, we're taught this lie about, slavery. But it really wasn't that. So Confederate History Month is all about, as I said before, the soldier. Now, remember years ago, they started going after our flags. At first, they started with the flag. Then, that wasn't enough for them. They went after our monuments. And folks, I will tell you that these people are anti-Christian. They hate white history, but they hate Christians. We know that the leaders of the Confederacy were Christians. We don't know about Abraham Lincoln. He wasn't a Christian. He never proclaimed it to be, no matter what that David Burton says. But we do know that Robert E. Lee was a Christian, and so was Stonewall Jackson and Jefferson Davis. Jefferson Davis proclaimed Thanksgiving to the glory of God in 1862, a year before Lincoln did. Lincoln never mentioned anything about God or anything like that. So all these neo-boomer Republicans who are trying to equate the 19th century Democrats with today are really very ignorant. And I will tell you, there were Democrats who fought for the North. There were Democrats who fought for the North in the Union. Robert E. Lee wasn't a Democrat. He was a Whig. So they got all their history screwed up. That documentary that Dinesh D'Souza did was totally ignorant and out of place and an insult. You know who got Donald Trump elected was white Southerners and people with Confederate heritage. Those are the people that got Donald Trump elected, and you're shooting yourself in the foot by attacking our ancestors, and you're saying they were evil when you're shooting yourself in the foot. Those are the people that got our country back. But anyway, folks, I don't want to go on a political tirade. Let me show y'all my friends over at the Virginia Flaggers. This is a Southern Heritage Preservation group, not racist, not the KKK. They just want to preserve our heritage. Now, these are the Virginia Flaggers, are very active here in Virginia. Now, at the NASCAR race I think a couple years ago or last year, they flew a banner that said, "Still capital of the Confederacy." Of course, we are. We are Richmond, Virginia. We are the longest running capital of the Confederacy. Then the Confederacy moved to Danville, Virginia at the end of the war, and Petersburg. It was originally in Montgomery, Alabama. Why did they move it to Richmond? Well, Richmond was more tactical. Richmond was only 100 miles south of Washington, D.C. We had more resources. We had a bigger population. And they felt it would more advantageous. And the war lasted for almost 5 years. So, there goes that theory is like, oh, we're so close to the enemy lines. But there are places north of D.C. that were in the Confederacy, like Winchester. So it was a very complex military orchestration, but they made it work. So the Virginia Flaggers is a wonderful group. They have erected dozens of Confederate battle flags all over the Commonwealth of Virginia. They raised one near Fredericksburg, near Lexington, and all of the interstate. If you see a Confederate battle flag flying high, you can thank the Virginia Flaggers. So the Virginia Flaggers have a Facebook webpage. And I just love what they do here. They always have a wonderful positive, it's all positive, pro-Confederate, no apologies. Okay, day 323 of occupied Richmond. That's where we are. See, they put the fence around General Lee. Just awful what they've done to it. So let's see. We've got Confederate Heritage Month. Confederate Brigadier General John Marshall Jones. He fought the Battle of Gettysburg in 1863 and gave his life for Southern independence at the Battle of the Wilderness in 1864. General Marshall was a native of Charlottesville, Virginia, once great city. Yep, sure has changed since his days. Now there's, this is wonderful news. A Confederate cavalry rides through Stone Mountain after a permit was denied. I think they have a picture there. And of course, on April 7th, 1861, the Commonwealth of Virginia becomes the 8th state to secede from the Union. A previous convention had voted against joining the Deep South cotton states in succession, but accelerating events, most notably Abraham Lincoln's calling for 75,000 volunteers to suppress the rebellion by invasion on April 15th, had changed things. Sic semper tyrannis. And there was their beautiful cake. It's just wonderful, folks. It really warms my heart to see all this wonderful celebration of Confederate heritage. And so celebrating Confederate history. So here's what it says. April is Confederate History and Heritage Month in the Old Dominion, as well as in many states across the South. As part of our celebration, in an effort to educate citizens of the Commonwealth, we will present a Q&A each day from a Confederate catechism by Lyon Gardner Tyler. President John Tyler is also a member of the Confederate Congress. So here's something interesting. Did Lincoln at any time offer any terms of peace? None, except absolute submission. He refused to see formally or informally the Southern commissioners sent to Washington before the war began on the childish legalism that claimed that the agents of an independent power, thus mimicking the arrogant attitude of the British commissioners in 1776. Folks, this was a war for independence. The war for Southern independence was resonant of the Revolutionary War. So if you call the Confederates traitors, you might as well call our founding fathers traitors, who broke away from England. So we know that. Now here's a wonderful picture of Stonewall Jackson monument in Lexington. Now Lexington is a hotbed of Democrat liberals trying to, just as bad as Richmond. How did they get in that little Shenandoah Valley town? Well, it's a college town, and as we all know, colleges are hotbeds of liberal indoctrination. So very anti-white, very anti-Southern, anti-Confederate. So we're fighting there, but we still have Stonewall Jackson celebration in Lexington, and they do that. Now here's a raising of the flag, the Virginia flaggers raising more flags. These are beautiful colorized photos of Confederate soldiers. Here's a raising of the Rockbridge County Confederate flag here. And we can see it's going up there. It's just beautiful sight to see. And, they always try to make them look like, we're just a bunch of hillbillies. But, people of all, education levels are very much, they believe that this is important to celebrate our Confederate heritage and our history. It's all about our history, folks. That's what it's about. Oh, they're letting out the rebel yell. Yeah. And so we raise all these flags across Virginia to show that we will not put up with, you cannot erase our history, our culture. The decimation of a Southern culture. Why? Because the South is the most resistant to communism. Jefferson Davis was a conservative. Abraham Lincoln was a liberal. And Lincoln is celebrated by these neo-Confederates, neo-conservatives that are celebrating Abraham Lincoln when Lincoln was a liberal. And they say, oh, we're the party of Lincoln. Y'all need a history lesson. Lincoln was not a conservative. So anyway, folks, I'm just so proud of the Virginia flaggers here, celebrating our Confederate history. Don't like my flag, the highway is north over yonder. Yeah, all these Yankees, if they don't like their Confederate, they can go. Y'all can leave, but no, y'all want lower taxes. And do you come down here for lower taxes? Now, this is partly political. So anyway, folks, the Confederacy is really a wonderful thing, and they fought for their country. It's all about fighting for their heritage and their country, and that's what we're doing today. So that's why we celebrate Confederate History Month. We cannot forget our history. We cannot erase our history. We have to preserve it as much as possible. Yeah. Oh, my phone went off. Neo Boomer. Thank you so much. Is that a Confederate? Yeah. Look at how they turned out for the Whigs. So anyway, so folks, I'm going to sing a song for you. This is a beautiful song called God Save the Southern Land. And I don't know who wrote it, but it sounds very Irish or Scottish to me. And it reminds me of, a wonderful thing, because it's just a beautiful hymn. And so I think so. Yeah, we're getting it right. We're going to do this one for you. If I can remember the words, it's just a beautiful thing. While hostile bands and dangers now threaten our fair land, may God's strong arm protect us with his most mighty hand. Above the southern banner may fortune's star long shine, and round the sacred incense the olive branches shine. Then let the cry awaken from every hero band, and still the prairie echo, God save the southern land. God save the hero spirits that battle for the right. Clothe them in heavenly armor with more than human light. Give them the Holy Spirit to bear our cross on high, and with the sacred merit we win the victory. Then let the cry awaken from every hero band, and still the prairie echo, God save the southern land. And still the prairie echo, God save the southern land. Yes, that's a nice song. It was originally done by Bobby Horton. Does a wonderful collection of these southern songs, and of course I used to do that when I was younger. I used to play. I tried to get up the banjo to play it, but it's just beautiful. It echoes everything about what they're fighting for. Now, there's a very interesting. You should look up a Confederate veteran, and his name is Julius Howe, and he says that they asked him what the South was fighting for, and he said it was not for slavery, it was for states' rights. And that is what we fight for today, you see, because the South, the Confederacy, in fact, it was so much into states' rights that they had a hard time delegating from Richmond, because Arkansas didn't want to be told what to do from Virginia, and Alabama and Georgia didn't want to answer to Tennessee. So the Confederacy was so much into the the anti-federalism that it had a hard time delegating, what to do. But we know that the South was invaded by force by the Yankees, who still invade the South, and they love to, these northern eggheads with their college degrees love to belittle Southerners. But Southerners are the last bastion of real patriots. The South, the Confederate soldiers, were brave, noble patriots who fought for a noble cause. And we are so proud. That's why we honor Confederate heritage. So no matter what the Commonwealth of Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia does now, the citizens of Virginia still have a right to honor Confederate veterans. And a lot of these monuments that were put up, everyone says, oh, they're Jim Crow. That is such a lie. That is a communist lie. They had nothing to do with Jim Crow. These Confederate monuments were a result of these Southern women who noticed that on Memorial Day up north they had all these Yankee monuments. And they said, well, why can't we honor our Confederate dead? Why can't we have, honor General Lee and Stonewall Jackson and the men that fought bravely for the South, that fought for their homes against federal terrorists? And that's what they did. They erected these monuments. It's not about who lost or who won. It's about remembering history. It's about honoring the dead. And that's what it's all about. It's about heritage. It doesn't matter who won or lost. It's about the soldier. And so that's why, people who don't know any better, they just spout off all these lies about the Confederacy. And, the Confederacy had a clause in their Constitution to dismantle the slave trade. So, there goes your argument about slavery. It's always, oh, slavery. No, it was about states' rights and economics. These rich northern bankers in the North were trying to control the southern economy. And so, folks, we're fighting another war today. Now, remember, back in the 1800s, our country was very divided. Of course, it's more divided today, but our country back then was not really the United States. It was really a conglomeration of states. It wasn't really a unity like we think of today. It got stronger later, as a whole, through especially after World War One. But our country, the United States, was very much separate. All the states were separate. It wasn't really like today. So when people say they were traitors, they were treasonous, or they committed treason, they don't understand the context of our country back then. It wasn't like today. We have some special people. Yeah. Let's see. Were you named after Union General George Meade? Oh, no, I was not. I was named after my ancestors who settled in Amelia County, Virginia. General Meade was actually adopted. That wasn't his real name. But I'm descended from the Meade family of Amelia County, Virginia. Now, there was a general, but he was a general in the Revolutionary War, and he had a farm in Amelia County. His name was General Everett Meade, and his descendants married into the Skelton family in Powhatan County, Virginia. And someone asked me where I got this. This is not from a thrift store. I got this on Amazon. It was sort of a discount because I had to tailor it. But yeah, I love seersucker, especially in this weather. Yeah. States' rights to have slaves. Oh no, that's just so silly. People are just so silly with all this nonsense. Democrat Representative Nick Gars. I've never heard of Nick Gars. My phone is doing something funny. So, thank you so much. Yeah. Let's see. The South says they'd be, okay. Well, there's what I think. I believe that if the South had won the war, slavery was on its way out, it was sort of a passing fad. So they would get new technology. They wouldn't need slavery. Remember, during the days of slavery, we didn't even have electricity. And owning a slave back then was the equivalent of owning like a laptop computer today or a Lexus. It was just sort of a commodity. It wasn't thought of as, oh, slavery. It was more like, oh, okay, I have a slave and they work and stuff like that. And I treat them well. And I give them housing and food and clothing. And so that's how they viewed slavery. But of course, slavery, I'm not defending slavery. I'm just saying that's how it was viewed. It's like having a laptop, okay, or a Lexus. And so after, I think someone did a video on what would happen if the South had won. Around 1870, the slaves probably would have been freed officially. Of course, there were already freed slaves, in the South before that disruptive war. There was already freed slaves. So I think they would have freed the slaves, and they would have eventually joined the Union again. I think what happened was they just had this little disagreement, and they didn't want the big government liberals telling them what to do. I'm sorry, Dinesh D'Souza, but you just don't have, you don't know anything about what liberalism is. So according to Dinesh D'Souza, I'm a leftist. Okay, according to Dinesh D'Souza, I'm a modern day Democrat because I support the Confederacy. I don't necessarily support the Confederacy as today. I support what they did. I believe they had a right to succession and that they were right. They were defending their homes. And according to Dinesh D'Souza, I'm a liberal. Okay, and Lincoln and his Republicans were conservative, even though Lincoln violated the U.S. Constitution and launched an unconstitutional war against the South in the absence of Congress, I might add. And also, Lincoln was a white supremacist. And it's funny, all these neocon boomer, neoconservative Republican boomers, if they read what Lincoln said about the blacks, they'd be a little surprised because he wasn't exactly an abolitionist, okay? He wanted to send them back to Africa. And he also had, he said, oh, they'll never be equal with whites. Now, Jefferson Davis, he had similar views, but wasn't even as bad as Lincoln. In fact, Jefferson Davis adopted a black boy, not as a slave, but as his son to raise. I can't imagine Lincoln ever adopting a black child with the way he felt about it. So, it's really funny. Jefferson Davis had not quite as harsh views on race as did Lincoln. So we're always saying that, oh, it's so evil. But and when what's that Jewish guy, Ben Shapiro, called the Confederacy evil? Ben Shapiro doesn't know what he's talking about. I'll be honest, there were good and bad on both sides. Just like Trump said, there were good Yankees. A lot of the Yankees were these Irish immigrants that they were forced into it. Just like the Nazis. The Yankees, the Union Army was kind of like the Nazis, in which they were just following orders. Okay, so these immigrants, they didn't really care about it. They weren't abolitionists. In fact, most Union soldiers were not. They're just fighting for the Union. So they were forced into it, right? And so they couldn't help it. And then on the Confederate side, you did have bad. I'm not saying all Confederates were good. You had Confederates doing bad things too. But the difference is, see, the problem was the Confederates were on the defensive side of the war, and the Union was on the offensive. So most of the war was fought in the South, Virginia, Tennessee, and North Carolina, and in fact, I would say Virginia. Everything was fought in Virginia. So the South was on the defensive. So they weren't the ones going around burning and raping and pillaging. It was the Yankees who came down in the South were burning, raping, pillaging, and setting things on fire, and especially churches. They're raping slaves. The Union soldiers were caught raping slaves and doing horrible things. I guess they're abolitionists. Sure, it contradicts their movement if they were abolitionists to go and rape a slave. But they did, and they did horrible things to Southern women who were left unprotected. They were at the mercy of these Yankees. So that's why, I believe the North was evil. I believe the Yankees were evil, even though there were some good ones. I mean, they were just forced into it. But I would say it's so funny that people compare the Confederates to Nazis. If anyone was like the Nazis, it was the North, because they invaded. It's like when Hitler invaded Austria, the North invaded the South. And Granny from the Beverly Hillbillies said it best when she said, what was the Civil War? It was the day the North invaded America, So, but to compare the Confederates to Nazis is just ridiculous. The Nazis, the National Socialist Party, who wanted world domination and put people in ovens. The Confederates were just defending their homes. They didn't want world domination. In fact, they wanted to be left alone. Do you see how silly it is to compare the two? That's why in Germany, they don't celebrate Nazis? Because it was run by an evil dictator that wanted to take over the whole world. The Confederates were defending their homes from federal terrorists. I think it's a big difference, okay? I think it's a big difference. Now, I'm not a historian, but I know quite a bit of history, and to make those comparisons is just, outrageous. It's outrageous and it's outlandish. But this is where the leftist liberals are. It's like, oh, yeah, Confederates are like Nazis. Give me a break. Now I will say that, here's some interesting things. I found some interesting things here. I was going to talk about when the Bonnie Blue, there were several Confederate songs I was going to talk about when that took place. But there are different songs that were written. Now let's take a look at the flags of the Confederate States. Here we go. Here are the battle flags. So there are actually many different battle flags. So the battle flag that most people are familiar with is the Southern Cross, the Army of Tennessee. That's the one that is associated with modern. But the liberals are saying that that's not a real Confederate flag. That's not true. But the first Confederate battle flag was the Army of Northern Virginia flag, as you can see on the chart over here, was the cross of St. Andrew, and it was Christian. And so that's why these liberals are going after the Confederate flag, because it's Christian. The cross of St. Andrew, it represents Christianity. And then, General Robert E. Lee, this is an attack on Christians when they're tearing down these monuments. Stonewall Jackson was a devout Christian. Robert E. Lee was a devout Christian. Many of the Confederates, many of the Yankees hardly ever mentioned God, but in the Confederacy, it was mentioned a lot. And as I said earlier, I think Jefferson Davis proclaimed the first Thanksgiving, in 1862, and Lincoln proclaimed it a year later. But Lincoln made no reference to God. But these are the battle flags. These are the flags of the Confederacy. So you have the stars and bars. And that's why people get confused. They're calling the Army of Northern Virginia flag and the Tennessee flag the Southern Cross. They're calling that the Stars and Bars, but the Stars and Bars was the one that looked more like the American flag. And then you have the stainless banner, the bonnet blue flag, the Navy Jack flag of the Choctaw Brigade, because, American Indians fought in the Confederacy too. How about that? The blacks, there were Negroes that fought in the Confederacy. In fact, I think if I have the video, if I can find it, somewhere in here, let me show y'all something very interesting here. There were blacks who fought in the Confederate Army, and I think there's a black guy. Let's see, where is he? Black. Let's see, where'd it go? I think on YouTube. Yes. Let's see what he says, because he was, So, blacks that fought in the Confederacy. So you're denying, all the diversity. Shoot, they even had Jews. They had Jews in the Confederacy. What was it, Judah P. Benjamin or something like that? His name there. Let's see, this guy in North Carolina. I think he's in North Carolina, so I've seen him before. And, yep. So here he is, the black Confederate soldier. And let's see if this will play. I don't know if I'll get it.
Looks like we got a little gathering.
So this guy is showing, there we are.
Hey. Good. How are you? What are you folks doing here today?
This is Confederate Memorial Day in North Carolina.
Oh, is it? Okay.
What you doing here today?
I'm just hanging out, just filming.
Okay, the moment you don't say you from New York City, you all right?
I'm not from New York. Do you not like people from?
You from Chicago?
Actually, I'm from near Chicago. Believe it or not.
Oh, you in trouble. Oh, now you in trouble. Man, I guess I shouldn't talk too bad, because in New York y'all did have a mighty fine mayor who wanted to succeed and continue doing business.
So Confederate Black Lives Matter. You can see that he's Confederate and he's got a battle flag. It's not racist, folks.
What do I owe?
You up all that stealing that y'all did?
Stealing.
You don't remember?
I wasn't around.
You know a little history, don't you?
I know history, yeah.
Well, y'all did a lot of stealing with Abraham Lincoln's General Order number 200. You go
Preach it, brother.
Come down south, rape, rob.
Oh,
steal,
that's true.
Do everything
He knows
you want
his
to,
history.
And never pay an accounting for what you do. Now, don't act like you don't know those history. Today is Confederate Memorial Day. Okay? So we teaching a little history. We ain't gonna put you out when you act Southern.
So I act Southern?
Try for you to do, but try to be a carpetbagger. And when you go back north, tell them folks we don't appreciate these people running around here taking down our monuments and and pulling down our flags and things. And we're here today to honor those fallen heroes. Try to do what General Robert E. Lee said. Be hospitable and try to put this thing back together like it was supposed to be in the first place. When you start tearing down our monuments and getting rid of our flags, you're taking down those of us who still stand for the Constitution of the United States of America. You know, you beat Southerners down. They told a lie about how we lost the war. We didn't really lose the war. General Lee just got tired of all the stealing and everything going on, so he gave up over that at Gettysburg. And he was tired of his men with no shoes on, no food, hungry.
Now that was so true. You know, Robert E. Lee, Gettysburg was a turning point in the war, and Robert E. Lee wasn't feeling very well that day. Why did the Confederates invade Gettysburg? They needed shoes. Those Yankees were taking away all their resources, you know, burning, looting, pillaging, and everything. So they needed, they needed shoes to get, you know, for their men. And Robert E. Lee said, you know, we need shoes. And then, you know, the Battle of Fredericksburg. In Fredericksburg, they had people fleeing Fredericksburg because the Yankees were horrible to the citizens of Fredericksburg, Virginia. And that's why Stonewall Jackson said, kill them all, because these Yankees were, coming in and stealing and raping and looting and doing all kinds of things. Can you imagine? It's just like when so if you're going to make a comparison, I would say a more likely comparison would be like, Hitler invading Poland or Austria. It was very similar when the Yankees came through. Now, I know my history. You're talking to someone who's seen the movie Gone with the Wind over 30 times. So I know my Civil War history and what happened then. So it's very, interesting how all these myths about, the Yankees wanted to free slaves, and they didn't care about slaves. They just wanted to they wanted to destroy the South. That was their goal. That was their ultimate goal. They wanted power and control. So when Dinesh D'Souza, and his boomer cohorts make up this stuff, David Burton, he's terrible. All this stuff about, the Republicans in the 19th century are just like today, and the Democrats in the 19th century are just like today. They don't know anything they're talking about. They are wrong, and they are just as bad as liberals. Like, liberals are like, you're racist. And then he's like saying, oh, no, I'm Republican, Party of Lincoln. Whoops, Party of Lincoln. Lincoln was the biggest racist of them all. So, it all just adds up to a lot of, stuff that goes back and forth, all these lies. And that's why we as Southern people have to stand up for the truth. We have to learn to love the truth. And God put it on his heart to defend our country. And why did the South lose? Well, sometimes I believe God lets evil win. So the North won the war. That doesn't mean God was on their side. Sometimes God lets evil prevail for whatever reason. But we are all Americans. And the Southern soldier, the Confederate soldier, everyone says, they're traitors, they were anti-American. No, they were Americans, but they didn't like the big government, and all those liberals attacking their states' rights. So, that argument goes out the window with that. But these were Americans. Robert E. Lee was an American. Stonewall Jackson was an American. And they were noble Virginians. And for these people to come down here and rename the schools, tear down our monuments, get rid of our history, destroy our culture, it's all part of a communist regime. It's all part destroying the local culture. We lost, in Richmond, when we lost Monument Avenue, we lost our culture. Richmond is done. Richmond is not worth seeing anymore. Richmond is gone. Richmond is not worth anything now. The only thing that mattered is gone. Monument Avenue, there's no reason to visit Richmond anymore. I don't care how many vegan restaurants you have. I don't care how many horrible, untalented punk rock groups you have or hippity hop. There's no reason to visit Richmond anymore. It is a terrible wasteland, and they destroyed it. They destroyed our culture. And that's why, on that day when I went to the Stonewall Jackson Monument, I had to stand up. Now, everyone says that, oh, because I cried, that I failed. But I don't think so. Imagine you going up against 500 people who are criminal element, carrying a flag that says defend our Confederate monuments, and doing it by yourself when you're on the autism spectrum. I don't think any of these keyboard warriors would have done it. And, sad to say, a lot of people say, well, Southerners are just too polite. We don't want to take a stand. We don't want to offend. Well, the problem is anyone under 60 really doesn't care. The younger Southerners are not willing to sacrifice anything for their history. There are some young ones, but I'm one of the youngest ones in the Virginia Flaggers. They're all getting older. And when that generation passes, we'll be left with ugly art. Now, on Monument Avenue today, we lose beautiful monuments like Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson. We're left with ugly art like Arthur Ashe, Arthur Trash. And obviously, this is not, and I'm not an identitarian, but obviously this is an attack on white people, and Black Lives Matter is so evil that it would make any normal person want to join the Klan because they are so anti-white and so evil that it's just they take away everything from us. So I don't regret what I did that day on Monument Avenue when I stood up to those thugs and I carried that flag. And even though I cried, I didn't cry right away. I didn't cry until they started throwing water at me. I didn't know what that was. They threw water at me and they tried to punch me, and then they grabbed my flag, and the police grabbed a hold of my arms. I didn't know. I thought I was going to prison because I was standing in front of communists. So, folks, I am not ashamed for anything, and I am not ashamed of my ancestors who fought for the glorious Confederacy. And as long as there is breath in my body, I will continue to educate and to honor those that fought for their homes. And the Confederate soldier is an honorable soldier. He was not a traitor. He wasn't a racist. He was a product of his era. And so I'm just so proud of what they tried to do, and that's what I try to do now. Now, yes, I was taken away. I wasn't arrested. They just took me home because they didn't want me to get hurt, and for good reason. But what the mayor of Richmond did was illegal. What he did, he was not supposed to do that. He was not supposed to remove the monuments until they had a city council meeting and voted. Now, probably they would have voted that way, but he is not even from Richmond, and that was his goal. When he got elected was to get rid of all the Confederate heritage. So what I love about the Virginia Flaggers... Oops. See if I can get back to... let's see if I can get back to
some of you
oops.
May have no...
I'm going to try to get back to the Virginia Flaggers. One thing I love about the Virginia Flaggers is on the top, what they put on the very top here, I can get the banner there, it says, still capital of the Confederacy. And so, and we had something back when we had the bike race in Richmond and all the liberals were complaining that they had to go down Monument Avenue in front of Jefferson Davis. They flew a plane with the banner that said Confederate Lives Matter. And they accidentally misspelled it, but it got attention. And so these people know what they're doing when, they are doing this for heritage. They know what works, and they know they have to do a grassroots effort. Yes. Mm-hmm. Gone with the Wind was an excellent movie. Gone with the Wind was one of the best movies ever made. And still to this day, it stands the test of time as one of the best movies ever made. Um, and I think that we all know that the South was right, and we all know that the South fought for their country, and it was love of country. That's what we have to remember. So, folks, this is not an attack on Northerners or Yankees. It's people that move here and think that they can erase our history. That's very evil and wrong, and we shouldn't put up with it. I love what they do. See, this is really wonderful. I'm so glad that there's a group like the Virginia Flaggers, because Virginia has really changed. Even Northern Virginia used to be Republican, the new Republicans, the conservative ones, and they weren't the hotbed of liberalism they are today. But Virginia has really changed, and unfortunately has a lot to do with our demographics. We're getting all kinds of, different kinds of people in, and they don't understand the culture, and they won't assimilate. But anyway, folks, I just want to thank each and every one of you for joining me tonight to celebrate Confederate History Month. And I had a lot more planned. I just got so busy. I'm doing school and everything. Oh, by the way, I passed my math quiz, which is wonderful. But if I think we need to honor our Confederate veterans, and I think that people, if you don't like the Confederate flags or monuments, leave, go. We don't want you here. We don't need you here. You can go and go somewhere else. Go to California. Oh, the free state of California, where people are can be arrested if they leave their house after 8 p.m. without a permit or something. As bad as liberal as Virginia's gotten, at least we're not to that point yet. Dare I say it, but free states like New York, where they're killing off their elderly, and see, it's so funny because you have to look at it this way. The South has always been more conservative. And so when Dinesh D'Souza and all these people say, Democrats were always liberal and radical leftists, the Democrat Party came before the Republican Party, and it was a party of Andrew Jackson, who, by the way, was a hero to Donald Trump. But the Democratic Party of the 19th century, do you think they would stand up for LGBTQ? No, none of those people. The Confederacy, they would not put up with same-sex marriage or transgender or communism. So it's just to conflate the two is ridiculous, and I don't understand. And the thing is, people like Dinesh D'Souza and David Burton, they're so focused on the party, they don't understand that the party's changed. And when liberals say, like, the Democrats became Republican and Republicans became Democrat, that's not true. But what is true is that the parties themselves went through a change, different factions. And I hate to say it, but the conservative Southern Democrats started leaving the party in the late 60s, and they joined Republicans, and they made the Republican Party more conservative, because Republicans had a very liberal wing. The Rockefellers and a lot of those types of people were very liberal. So the social conservatives of the Democrats left the Democratic Party and joined the Republicans. But these neo-boomer, Republicans, neo-conservatives, they don't want that. They don't want to acknowledge that. They just think, oh, Republican, good. Democrat, bad. Democrat was a party of KKK and slavery and Jim Crow. They don't want to acknowledge that the conservatism in the Republican Party is largely due to white Southerners who were Confederate, who were in the Democrat Party. They don't want to acknowledge that. And even I acknowledge it. I acknowledge it because my grandparents voted for George Wallace, my grandfather and my grandmother were big supporters of George Wallace, who was a Democrat, but they were very conservative, and then they became Republican after. So I'm sorry, but the liberals are right when they say that. When the liberals talk about Southern strategy, they are right, because it happened. I know, because I know that a lot of the conservatism in the Democrat Party left and went Republican. This is a fact. And all these neo-boomer Republicans, you try to hide that because they say it's alive. Nope. Nope. And so we're the ones who got Trump elected, folks. We neo-Confederates are the ones that got Trump elected. And Donald Trump said that the Confederate flag was a symbol of heritage. And he was right. Donald Trump is a friend of the South. In fact, I think we should make Donald Trump an honorary Southerner because, he's just like us. He thinks like us. And he's from Queens, Queens, but he thinks like a Southerner. How is that possible? So, folks, it's not even, I meet a lot of Yankees. They're not, I think there's a difference between a Northerner and a Yankee. The Yankees are the ones that are the liberal, radical leftists that moved to the South, like that lady that threw Sarah Huckabee out of the, Sarah Sanders threw out of the Red Hen in Lexington. She was a Yankee from New York. But there are New Yorkers who move to the South that don't want that liberalism. They want the Southern way of life. And if you go through any family tree, any Southern family tree. Now my family tree is sort of a straight line, but if you go through any Southern family tree, you're bound to find a few Yankees in it because, especially in Virginia, there was North-South marriages. But the difference is when the Northerners in those days moved to the South, they assimilated. They got rid of their foreigner ways and they became Southerners. All Southerners started somewhere else. But the culture of the South is that Scotch-Irish, Anglo, that cavalier, very pride, honor, heritage, tradition. That is the model of the Southern culture, which started at Jamestown, Virginia, and it spread throughout the rest. So that's why these people that used to come to the South, they assimilated. But the Yankees today, they don't want to assimilate. They want their big slice pizza and their liberal ways and their high taxes. No, they want low taxes, but they want the leftism and socialism or whatever, and they want to get rid of all the names and all the flags and all the monuments. But that's why we have such an issue with these people. Is who are you to come here and tell us how to behave? Who are you to do this? So that's why it's an issue for me. And so that's why I say, it's heritage, not hate, because that's true. This is not hate. It's just we're honoring people that fought for their homes against federal terrorists. So anyway, folks, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me tonight and celebrating Confederate History Month. Now, next week, I will be at Hollywood Cemetery in Richmond. They will be doing a Confederate memorial service there, and we will have the flags out. I encourage everyone to show up, unless you're a liberal, because you might have a heart attack. But if you want to come out and support the Confederate heritage, that would be wonderful. So yes, all my ancestors fought in the Confederacy, all the ones that were here. I had, some were slave owners, some were not. They were fighting for their homes. That was the bottom line. They're fighting for their homes and their freedom and their property rights and states' rights. So that was it. So folks, thank you for watching. Please go to my website at meadskeletonsplace.com, and as God is my witness, they will not take my flag. Good night.